The Prophet Muhammad. In Chapter 7, you learned about the geography of the Arabian Peninsula where Muhammad was born in about 570 CE. Muhammad taught the faith called Islam, one of the great religions of the world. In this chapter, you will learn about his life and the early spread of Islam in the 600s and 700s CE. Muhammad's birthplace, Mecca, was an ancient place of worship. According to Arab and Muslim traditions, many centuries before Muhammad was born, it was here that God tested the faith of the prophet Abraham by commanding that he leave his wife Hagar and baby son Ishmael in a desolate valley. As Abraham's wife desperately searched for water, a miracle happened. A spring bubbled up at her son's feet. The spring became known as the Zamzam. Over time, people settled near it, and Abraham built a house of worship called the Kaaba. By the time of Muhammad's birth, Mecca was a prosperous city that stood at the crossroads of great trade routes. Many people came to worship at the Kaaba, but instead of honoring the one God of Abraham, the Kaaba had become a shrine to many traditional gods. Muhammad was living in Mecca when he experienced his own call to prophethood. Like Abraham, he proclaimed belief in a single God. At first, the faith he taught, Islam, met with resistance in Mecca, but Muhammad and his followers called Muslims, eventually triumphed. Mecca became Islam's most sacred city, and the Kaaba became the center of Islamic worship. In this chapter, you will explore Muhammad's life. You will learn how Islam quickly spread through Arabia and beyond. As you will see, within a century of Muhammad's death, a great Muslim empire stretched from North Africa to Central Asia. Islam has its roots in Arabia, where Muhammad was born. To understand Islam's beginning, we first need to look at the world in which Muhammad grew up. The town of Mecca, Muhammad's birthplace, was located in a dry, rocky valley in western Arabia. Unlike oasis towns, Mecca did not have agriculture. Instead, it gained wealth as a trading city. Merchants traveled along caravan routes, stopped at the city's markets and inns. They bought spices, sheepskins, meat, dates, and other wares from townspeople and nomads. By the late 6th century, when Muhammad was born, Mecca was a prosperous city. Merchant families brought goods into Mecca from faraway places. Merchants grew wealthy through trade with Yemen, southern Arabia, Syria, and Africa. Over time, a handful of families have come to rule the city. These families would not share their fortune with the weaker, poorer clans who lived in the city. Mecca was also a religious center. The Kaaba, a cube-shaped shrine, was said to have been built by Abraham for God centuries before. In Muhammad's day, most Arabs were polytheists. People believed in many gods, and the Kaaba housed hundreds of statues of gods. Pilgrims from all over Arabia came to Mecca to worship. Many Arabs, however, lived in the desert rather than in the town. There was no central government in Arabia. Instead, Arabs pledged loyalty to their clans and large groups called tribes. Sometimes tribes lodged raids on other tribes to capture territory, animals, goods, and watering places, and even wives. When someone was killed during a raid, his family was honor-bound to avenge the death. Although Arabs on the peninsula were not united as a nation, they shared ties of culture, especially language. Arabic poetry celebrated the history of the Arab people, the beauty of their land and their way of life. Poets and singers from different tribes competed at gathering held at the market and during pilgrimage. This was the culture into which Muhammad was born. Let's turn now to the story of his life and how he changed the world. Around 570 CE, a boy named Muhammad was born in Mecca. Muhammad's early life was a humble one. Few people who were not members of his clan, the Hashim, noted his birth. His father had already died, and the clan was poor. Following the custom, Muhammad's mother sent her baby to live with a nomad family in the desert. There, the young boy learned about Arab traditions, such as being kind to strangers and helping orphans, widows, and other needy members of society. When Muhammad was about 5 or 6, he returned to the city and his mother. They had little time together because she soon died. Muhammad was left in the care of his grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib, a highly regarded leader of the Hashim clan. Upon Abd al-Muttalib's death, Muhammad's uncle, Abu Talib, a respected merchant himself, took charge of the orphan. Abu Talib also became head of the clan. As a boy, Muhammad watched his family's flock of sheep and goats, and when he was 12 years old, he accompanied his uncles on a trading journey. They traveled far north to Syria, and on the journey, Muhammad gained his first exposure to places outside of the Arabian desert. As Muhammad grew up, he took on more duties and made more trading journeys. He became a trader who enjoyed a reputation through Mecca for his honesty. People called him Al-Amin, which means trustworthy. Muhammad was still young when he began managing caravans for a widow named Khadijah, who ran a trading business. Muhammad earned her great profits. Impressed with his abilities and honesty, Khadijah proposed marriage. Muhammad accepted her offer, and at around age 25, he married Khadijah. Muhammad and Khadijah had several children, but only their daughters, Fatima, had children of her own. She continued the bloodline of Muhammad. For the next 15 years, Muhammad made his living as a merchant. Although he enjoyed success in business, he also cared about spiritual matters. He often spent time in prayer in the mountains around Mecca. In about 610 CE, Muhammad went to pray in a cave in the mountains. It was there he received the call to be a prophet, or messenger of God, whom the Arabs called Allah. Muhammad later described the remarkable events of that night. He told that he received a visit from the angel Gabriel. Muhammad described how Gabriel told him several times to recite. Muhammad asked what he was to recite, and Gabriel answered, "Recite in the name of the Lord, who created man from blood coagulated. Recite, thy Lord is a wonderful kind, who by the pen has taught mankind things they knew not." Muhammad left the cave, quaking with fear, but Gabriel spoke to him again, declaring, "You are the messenger of God." At first, Muhammad feared that he might be going mad, but Khadijah consoled Muhammad and expressed her faith that God had chosen him as a prophet to communicate his word to the people. Khadijah became the first convert to Islam. The faith of Islam is based on monotheism, or a belief in a single God. This God, Muhammad taught, was the same God of Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. Through Gabriel, God told Muhammad to teach others about how to treat people with compassion, honesty, and justice. According to Muslim tradition, Gabriel continued to reveal messages from God over the next 22 years. At first, Muhammad confided these messages only to his family and friends, including his cousin Ali and a close companion, Abu Bakr. Gradually, a small group of followers developed at Mecca. They were called Muslims, which means those who surrender to God. For Muslims, Islam was a way of life and the basis for creating a just society. Though Muhammad apparently could neither read nor write, he said that the message from Gabriel were imprinted on his mind and heart. His followers also memorized them. Eventually, some followers wrote down those words and collected them in the Quran, the holy book of Islam. The poetic beauty of this book helped attract new believers in Islam. Around 631 CE, Muhammad began to preach to other Meccans. He taught that people must worship one God, and that all believers in God were equal, and that the rich should share their wealth. He urged the Meccans to take care of orphans and the poor and to improve the status of women. Some members of Muhammad's clan became Muslims. People from other clans and social classes also joined him. Most Meccans, however, rejected Muhammad's teachings. Makkah's leaders did not want to share their wealth. They also feared that if Muhammad grew stronger, he would seize political power. Merchants worried that if people stopped worshipping their gods, they might stop making pilgrimage to Mecca. Muhammad's monotheistic teachings also disturbed Arabs who did not want to give up their gods. To prevent the spread of the prophet's message, some Arabs called Muhammad a liar. Some tortured his weaker followers. Despite this treatment, the Muslims would not give up their faith. Muhammad also was protected by Abu Talib, the head of the Hashim clan. Anyone who harmed a member of the clan would face Abu Talib's vengeance. As the number of Muslims grew, the powerful clans of Makkah started a boycott to make Muhammad's followers give up Islam. For 3 years, the Hashim clan suffered, as Makkahs refused to do business with them. Although they were threatened with starvation, the boycott failed to break their will. These difficult years, however, took their toll on Abu Talib and Khadijah. In 619, these trusted family members died. While those losses were terrible for Muhammad, the year he reported a miracle happened. The Quran tells the story of the night journey, in which a winged horse took Muhammad to Jerusalem. There he met and prayed with early prophets like Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. The horse that guided Muhammad through the 7 levels of heaven, and Muhammad met God. To this day, Jerusalem is the holy city for Muhammad, for Muslims. With Abu Talib's death, Muhammad lost his protector. As Muslims came under more attacks, Muhammad sought a new home. Then a group of Arabs, pilgrims from a town called Yathrib, visited Mecca and converted to Islam. They asked Muhammad to move to Yashur to bring peace between feuding tribes. In return, they pledged their protection. In 622, Muhammad and his followers left Mecca on a journey known as the Hijr. Yaru was named Medina, also spelled Medina, short for the city of the Prophet. The year of Muhammad's Hajj later became the first year in the Muslim calendar. In Medina, Muhammad developed a new Muslim community. As more Arabs converted to Islam, Muslims pledged to be loyal and helpful to each other. They emphasized the brotherhood of faith over the ties of family, clan, and tribe. Muhammad also asked his followers to respect Christians and Jews. Like Muslims, these people are of the book. They believe in one God. The Meccans, however, still felt threatened, and in 634, fighting broke out between the Muslims and the Makkah. The Muslims successfully attacked a caravan on its way to Mecca. A few years later, the Makkans staged a siege of Medina, but failed to capture the city. Meanwhile, Muhammad converted other tribes to join the Muslim community, and as Islam spread across Arabia, the Meccans made a truce with the Muslims, and in 628, they agreed to let Muhammad make the pilgrimage to their city the following year. In 630, however, they broke the truce. As Muhammad's army marched towards Mecca, the city leaders surrendered without a battle. Muhammad and his followers destroyed the idols, statues of gold, and the Kaaba, and rededicated the shrine to Allah. Muhammad also forgave his former enemies. The war had ended. In March 632, Muhammad led his final pilgrimage. In the town of his birth, he delivered his last sermon. He reminded Muslims to treat each other well and be faithful to their community. Shortly after his return to Medina, Muhammad died. When Muhammad died, most of the central and southern Arabia was under Muslim control, and the Prophet's death, his companions had to choose a new leader to preserve the community. They picked Abu Bakr, Muhammad's friend and father-in-law. Abu Bakr became the first caliph, or Muslim ruler. He and the 3 leaders who fought him came to be known as the right-guided caliphs. These caliphs followed the Quran and the example of Muhammad. The Muslim government was called the Caliphate. When some tribes tried to break away, Abu Bakr used military campaigns to reunite the community. Under his leadership, Muslims completed the unification of Arabia. Then they began to carry the teachings of Islam beyond the Arabian Peninsula. After Abu Bakr died in 634, Caliph Umar expanded the Muslim empire. In addition to spreading the faith of Islam, conquests allowed Muslims to gain new lands, resources, and goods. By 643, the Muslim empire included lands in Iraq, Persia, the Eastern Mediterranean, or Northern Africa. Umar set up governments and tax systems in these provinces. He also let Jews and Christians worship as they liked in Egypt. Treaties allowed for freedom of worship in exchange for the payment of a tribute. Later, Muslims completed similar treaties with the Nubians, a people who lived in the south of Egypt. Upon Umar's death in 644, Uthman became caliph. Uthman was a member of the Umayyad clan. He helped unite Muslims when he selected an official edition of the Quran, but he also awarded high points to his relatives. People in the provinces complained that they were ruled unfairly. Discontent spread, and rebels killed Uthman in 656. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, reluctantly agreed to become the 4th caliph. Some Umayyads challenged his rules, drawing the Muslim community into a civil war. Ali sent forces against them, and when he ended the rebellion through negotiations, some of his supporters disapproved.